you ventured into the world of College Volleyball Weekly, covering the top teams in volleyball. Now here's your host, Rob Aspero, also known as Rob on the mic. All right, good day, everyone. I'm Rob Aspero with College Volleyball Weekly. We've got a very, very early episode going on here, being that it is the month of October and the men's season starts in January. But it's a great opportunity to meet some of our newer coaches. We had some real fresh coaches on already, but we've got a year one coach. And I thought, what better time would there be than to speak today to NCAA semifinalist, head coach, and won every award in the MIVA last year, and coach of the year last year, which I got to announce at the NCAA awards banquet. But head coach of Ball State, Donan Cruz, thank you for coming on today.
Rob, thanks for having me, man. Excited. Volleyball's in motion now for us here, and excited to be on a podcast with you.
Well, you know, it's exciting because I got to meet you for the first time in person at Westwood at the national championships. Did you ever think that you'd get a picture with John Hawks and he'd end up in the same conference as you this year?
Definitely not what I was thinking about when we took that picture, but really excited for John and you know, excited to see what he's going to do at Loyola. And, you know, if he continues to carry the same success he's had leading up to this role, then he's going to do some good things there.
Well, excellent. Well, great group of guys together on shot. So I'm honored to be able to take that pic of you guys. But, you know, I knew at one point we'd cross paths. I knew that what you're doing was a great thing out there at Ball State. But so I wanted to start by asking you, how'd you come across the Ball State head coach position? What prompted you to go in and apply?
You know, it was kind of twofold. I know when Ball State had a search out for a new head coach after the announcement of Joel's retirement kind of early in the season. You know, at Grandview, it was such a great place for me and my family. And, you know, we really didn't have any intentions of leaving where we were. And I received a couple of phone calls about interest in seeing if there was some alignment between my professional aspirations and what Ball State had to offer. And it was just one of those really, really good opportunities. I felt like where I was at Grandview was a really good transition opportunity for me in that program, in a very good place after winning that final season and just kind of growing that program from ground zero. So between a lot of different avenues of conversation, I was just pretty fortunate to have my family and I arrive to Muncie on a couple of visits in the interview process. And, you know, we just really could envision ourselves with our three boys here, and things have been great since then.
Excellent. Well, when you received the position, what was your initial response in hearing that news, especially when you're leaving such a great situation at Grandview as a four-time NIAI Coach of the Year, and you're going to this D1-2 program that's always contending for postseason appearances?
Yeah, it was a very humbling opportunity. And, you know, with only two coaches before me, with Coach Joel and Coach Shondell, you know, it really was about having the opportunity for myself to kind of challenge and see what I could do in some context in a much larger program, in a, I think, more competitive league for sure, from top to bottom. So humbling because of the tradition that Ball State represents, not only in men's volleyball, but the impact you see in the coaching community on the women's side as well. There's so much volleyball lineage that stems from this campus, and to be able to put my name along with Christian and Mike in that same conversation, I just thought was extremely big opportunity, and here we are.
That's excellent. Now, could you describe for our viewers and listeners what your expectations were going into your rookie coaching season, so to speak, into 2022?
Yeah, I think we're in the interview process, kind of going back to that piece. I think the alignment for me and what we had in commonalities with our former AD Beth Getz and the current players and the alumni base was people were hungry to win and compete at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
When we discovered that was the goals and objectives for the program in the interview process, that was right in line with what I was sort of mindset on at Grandview. And I don't feel like being new to a program and having a new team and sort of jumping right into a group that we were grandfathered into was any less expectation than try to do our best and play volleyball as long as you can in the season. And for us, that's trying to win and compete for championships and conference, and then put ourselves in the best position to compete at the national level. And I thought we got a very close glimpse of that. And then how season ended, there's so many things, one point here and there that just shift the landscape of how well you do. And I just felt like our expectation was do our best and win. And I thought the group last year really responded to that and embraced every moment we had.
Yeah, well, my next question for you was in regards to your messaging and mission that you challenge your guys to, but I mean, almost sounds like what you just previously responded was that mission was to do your best and go play as long as you can. But was it tough to get their buy-in and then also their ability to, I guess, respect whatever the mission?
I would say we were really fortunate with the group that we had because, if you just kind of take a snapshot look at the group of guys that were here and kind of what their routes were prior to in the seasons leading up to
Us kind of coming on staff, and they were hungry to win. And I think we could have been saying some bogus stuff and they're going to buy in. It was just good timing. I think it was a great transition for our staff to come in. And I don't think we were really challenging them to do uncommon or difficult things. I think it was just more about the mentality and the self-belief in our group about if we're going to compete at the highest level, we got to think at the highest level too, and believe in ourselves at the highest level. And I think in part, a lot of the guys that you saw on the court last year were guys that were at Ball State leading up to all these seasons. So there's a perfect storm of buy-in and also our coaches, Christian and Mike, working with me on coming to some good common ground of things that we wanted to teach and influence. And I thought the guys just did really well in the respect mode and trying to find what was going to be the best recipe for success last year.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Being that you've been at different programs to develop to the coach that you are today, how would you describe your coaching style? Is it different from what the Ball State program or culture had been? Please.
Yeah, I don't know of how much different it was. I think just organically you have conversations with guys on, hey, what are some things that, over the past few seasons were some emphasis specific to your position, your work ethic, and like what are areas where we could find and improve. And
for me as a coach, that's always been my model is to, as coaches, our biggest role is to try to mentor and try to help these young men become the best version of themselves. And oftentimes that skill, or it's not skill related, it's trying to get guys to see and understand some of the work ethic piece and the culture of what it takes if you want to win games. There's a level of discipline and behavior that you have to have. And I can't judge what was before, but I just know that the group last year really bought into the concept of dedicating themselves to putting ourselves in the best position to be successful. And that's always been an objective of mine and my main goal. It's what makes me so passionate about coaching, is working with people and trying to figure out how do I get the best out of each individual, because it's those people that help make the group successful.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's been a big centerpiece to how I've approached coaching. And once I could connect with each individual on the team, I just feel like when you get into group settings, you understand the dynamics of how people work and what their culture and mentality is based on where they're from. And I think that was a big piece to our success, not only last year, but for most teams that I've coached over the years.
Yeah. Now, with that, who would you say, or what influences have helped shape your methods, techniques, and coaching style?
A big part, I've always said my upbringing, how I was raised and some of those influences of coaches that I played for that, were not necessarily the things that I do in style, but the life lessons that they kind of instilled and taught me. And there's a lot of coaches that I look up to, and kind of just in general, not only in volleyball, but in other professional sports too. So, my goal has always been taking bits and pieces of things that I think really resonate with me. But I've been a team guy since I started coaching, trying to help groups understand that the power is within the group and not only in the individual, and tried to stick with that as best as I could. And those are echoing messaging that's going on in our gym right now, is just teaching guys how to work with people next to them. And I've just always felt like my upbringing and my big mentors and people that I looked up to were big influences on how I coach and how I approach coaching.
Yeah. Well, I know this last summer I had come across you in Tulsa, Oklahoma for the National Team Development Program. How long have you been involved there, and how did you get involved?
Man, it's been maybe since like 2011 or 12 was my first high performance event in Tucson, Arizona. I was with like the Iowa region HP, and through that event I met at that time the director of what was then called High Performance, USA Volleyball High Performance.
Yep.
And then just kind of snowballed into different opportunities between the high performance event in the summer to the holiday camp that's down in San Diego, or used in San Diego. And since then, just like little opportunities along the way in some of those training groups. And to be honest, that's also a big part of the reason how I've become so connected with a lot of the NCAA coaches on the men's side, was through my experience with USA Volleyball. So that's been full circle for me on that professional. And it's anytime you have an opportunity to help and learn, develop young athletes and learn from some of the best coaches in the country, and represent Team USA in any capacity, I think is a pretty big honor.
Yeah. Well, one thing I realized from the last few years of what was high performance, now the NTDP, but there is some phenomenal talent across the nation. And then you couple that with the amount of great NCAA coaches. Like I saw you, Ryan Ammerman, the new assistant at UC Irvine, Worley was there, or Matt Worley of Grand Canyon was there. Hawks, which at the time was an assistant at UCLA. Just seeing all these guys out there all collaborating to help develop the men's program, but also realizing these guys have so much potential. What you guys are doing, it's such great work you guys are doing.
Yeah, and kudos to USA Volleyball for bringing those minds together and creating not only a really good opportunity for the athletes, but
I think the high performance and NTDP has been an amazing platform for coaches to develop, and if they continue to develop our coaches in the U.S., I think it only makes us better at the national level and the international level.
Yep. Well, let's jump into the start of your first season. You had a obviously high performing 2022 squad with Quinn Isaacson at the helm, Caleb Jennis and transfer Angelos Mandaloris providing the firepower at your pins, and Edgar Edgareva enforcing the middle. Did you imagine having the success that you had in the MIVA as a first-year head coach, considering you went 12-2 in conference and 23-4 overall? You won the MIVA conference tournament title and only the second NCAA tournament appearance since 2002. And that's a lot just right there. And there's even more, which is even crazier.
Yeah, when we arrived on campus and got into our first training sessions, I knew there was
a high level talent and guys that really understood how to play the game. And some of our tweaks we made systematically, I think really played into the strengths of the group. So yeah, going into it, I did feel like we were going to be able to compete. And then like anyone else, you kind of get out there, and the MIVA is a strong conference, and you got to kind of show up every single night. And after we got a couple matches under our belt, you start to get a sense. And I think the big one I'll go back to is that self-belief of each guy and of the group. And, confidence goes a long way when you're trying to compete at a high level with opponents that expect, big results too. So being able to go to competition and find some success early on, I think was a great motivational factor for the group. And then as you kind of mentioned, we just sort of rode that momentum kind of in the right current as we were heading into LA.
Yeah, it's odd to seem like I know the competition is intense in the MIVAs, particularly with teams like Ohio State, Lewis, Loyola, and others, like even Fort Wayne, and everyone was battling night in, night out. But it seemed like, at least from a approach standpoint, Ball State was cruising. It's like they were so controlled. They were I felt like they were never having to respond, but just were staying to the plan and were winning, because they never seemed like they lost it at all. I mean, like from a composure standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, internally, I think slightly different.
That's why I have more gray hairs, right?
You do, and I think it's okay embracing those moments and pressure, and identifying and acknowledging that the situation is a pretty
High stressful situation in terms of what's on the line. But I think going back to training is, we try to create drills and scenarios that replicate some of those things. Now, when playing on the road at Purdue Fort Wayne for what could clinch a regular season, it's really hard to replicate that type of environment and kind of drills that really replicate that. But I feel like our guys were just so bought into not allowing the situation to dictate how we performed. I mean, even if you look at set one against Hawaii in the Final Four, we made a really late run, and that momentum, I think, is what helped us win game 2 and 3. Had we packed up in set one, I think you would have seen a different type of match, or at least the flow of a match, and you don't see a game 5. But our group was resilient and never allowed situations to dictate how we carried ourselves. And that's something that we hope will be a common factor or common see with our program.
Yeah. Looking at some of the accomplishments just within MIVA last year, it showed it was the first time you'd beaten Lewis on the road since 2016, I believe, or 14. I may have get my 2010, and it's the first time you'd swept Ohio State since 2014, which are some of the most winningest teams in the last 10 years. I mean, was that an indicator for you as to where your team could go, being that they've knocked off some of the top performing MIVA teams?
Well, I think that was probably one of the greatest things about our staff, is it was sort of that you don't know what you don't know. I never, as much as Coach Friend and Birch are guys that from the outside, if you're a volleyball fan, you pay attention to those things.
So from the respect level, absolutely, it's great for our program to be able to get over a hump like that.
Mm-hmm.
But as a coach, I don't really go into those matches really thinking about those types of things. And you kind of take a look back now, it is neat to see that. However, that I think is why I'm sitting in the chair I am today, is because that's what the alumni and our fan base has been really wanting, was to see that edge. And win or lose in those matches, you want to just make sure you're relevant and competitive. And I think we will continue to push those top teams, as I think they're going to respond and come pretty heavy in this season too.
Yeah. Well, the fruits of your season rewarded you with a number 2 seed going to the NCAA tournament, which meant a match into the semifinal against Hawaii. And it was a 5-setter, totally exciting matchup. Fell short, but still, it was one of the best matches I've seen in the NCAA tournament in some time. But what was that whole experience like for you and the team going through national championship tournament week, from cruising Santa Monica to the AVCA awards banquet and then to that semifinal match?
Just a really cool life experience for the whole team. And, for me personally, playing at that point in the year is something that has been pretty comfortable for me as a coach, and being in that environment and preparing for those matches. I thought our team did great considering we hadn't been there
In quite some time, but just a great, I think if you 10, 20, 30 years from now, you talk to that group, I think that experience that we had as a team at Poly is going to be a lifelong memory for sure. And just the lead up and getting the 2 seed and really just making it to the tournament, man, was exciting. And what a better way to end the season. I mean, obviously we want to win that, but we went out and I felt like our group really represented the Ball State community in the right way, how I feel like our team conducted themselves while we were out at UCLA's campus. It was a great experience. And, you got to know that when you get to that point, someone's got to lose, right? And hats off to UH. They had a tremendous season, and that night they were better than us. And that's just how it goes,
Yep. Kind of off script question for you, but did my attempt to Californiaize Edgar work? After that social media post of him in front of the Santa Monica sign with his slides and socks on, and with the rainbow sandals that I gave him.
You don't roll slides anymore, so you he's I seen him wear them one time, so there was definitely an impact made on him. And
Mike and I both rock rainbows all the time, so
I'd expect nothing less of you.
I think he got the point, but and I feel bad because we're the ones that got him those slides. And the problem is the intention was not to wear them at the beach. We give him some other piece of equipment, and so I really appreciated calling him out on that one.
Got to get that NIL deal with rainbow sandals.
Let's see.
Well, I was going to ask you about your connection with Hawaii, because I watched the series early on in the season, and even just seeing you with Coach Charlie Wade at the NCAAs, there's a connection there that I think that people may have overlooked, but it's a really cool connection just between you and the Hawaii program.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Milan, Charlie, and Chad, they're volunteer. Chad
Probably being my closest friend of that staff, but I grew up watching Hawaii play and just have the utmost respect for University of Hawaii, but also the state of Hawaii. And that's where I call home. I was born and raised in Guam, but went to high school in Hawaii, and just always been a big fan of what they do. And when you get a chance to be on the opposing side from them, none of that changes. But when you go to work, I'm all Ball State when we're playing. And when the last point is scored, regardless of if you're on the winning end or losing end, I respect Coach Wade for what he does. And Charlie's been only good to me, and the program has only been good to me. They invited us out when I was at Grandview back in, I think, 2017. So I got a lot of fond memories of teams I've coached in Hawaii. So you can never discount someone when they're trying to do their best and put their team in best position to win as well. So and we're going to see them again this upcoming year. So we hope that that's a relationship on the professional side to keep going, because I think they're always going to be good. And our goal at Ball State is to always be in the conversation too.
Because of my excited fan side volleyball nerd guy, is I can see them again in the fall preseason or in the regular season.
In the regular season.
Okay.
Either one of us release schedules yet, but we'll see a replay of the match back in May here in a few months. So
Wow. Be watching that one for College Volleyball Weekly for sure.
I think so. It's going to be a good one. We hope.
Well, let me bounce this off of you. I know it's probably gonna be really difficult for you to answer, but yeah, to top it all off, this incredible rookie season, you ended up receiving the 2022 AVCA NVA Men's Division 1-2 Coach of the Year award. What goes through your mind when you look at your first year accomplishments?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, the piece of receiving the award is extremely humbling, because that's coaches vote on that, and to have the respect of your peers, acknowledge the hard work and dedication that your team and staff put into everything that we do as coaches is a nice nod and gesture to, I think, reinforcing the things we're working on, right? And but I don't know. It sounds weird to say I don't put a lot of weight into those awards, but for me, that's just a reflection of our staff and our team putting in the work. Those individual awards don't come if the group doesn't put in the work. So it was definitely a special season, and for it being my first year, was a great experience of learning and getting a lot of things to go in our favor, and also some really big ones not going our way. And to look back at it and be able to receive that honor was really cool experience for me, and honestly my wife too, because she's the one that is at home a lot with our three boys when we're training and on the road in season. So for our family and being able to get that recognition is a pretty special moment for us at home too.
Yeah. Now, this last year, who would you say did you enjoy playing the most? During the non-conference play, conference play. Was there any particular team or even match that stuck out?
That's a tough one. It's a tough one because it depends at what point in the season we're talking. Obviously the Hawaii ones give us the initial momentum and confidence that we could accomplish
these goals that we put down on paper before the start of the season. You're playing defending champions in conference. Those are big ones. And, for our guys that were here, every time we played a conference match, I'm not involved in what happened before, but they're always trying to remember, oh, you know what they did, and this is how we lost, and they got us out of the tournament. I'm like, guys, what are we talking about, man? But every conference match, I just felt like was so high value. I mean, it was tight at one point that playing at home is critical in the postseason for us, and you're just kind of tracking what's happening around conference. But any time we were playing some conference matches, I just always felt like you kind of go into that I wouldn't say anxious, but the nervous excitement is pretty high. The Hawaii matches, as far as our gym environment and our arena, was the final against Purdue Fort Wayne was a pretty epic atmosphere. And first and second night against Hawaii was insane. I mean, probably the larger crowds that we've seen. So those two kind of stand out. And then set 5 of the UCLA long match, like waiting in the hallway, like them going to 5 was sort of, yeah, that was nuts too. So, and we weren't even playing in that one, but just to get the momentum going for our match was pretty cool.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine seeing that hallway when UCLA is up 2-0. You're like, oh, let's start warming up. We're gonna go, and then Long Beach turned it.
Yeah, we weren't doing that, but you got to prepare yourself for
Yeah,
the momentum of the game ahead of you. And I mean, that warm up felt like forever. And then on top of that,
We're not on Eastern time, but for us in our mind, we're like, wow, okay. I know our fans were kind of itching to log into a game, and but yeah, it was just there's a handful, but I feel like the final,
yeah,
the tournament final was pretty big. As a matter of fact, I guess us against Purdue Fort Wayne at Fort Wayne, and that's the night that Ohio State beat Loyola, which gave us the clinch
mhm.
for the regular season too. That was those are pretty, I think, significant matches that I can recall back to pretty well.
Yep. Well, I've got to ask now, as we move into this 2023 season, but how will you build off of your 2022 success and parlay that into the 23 season?
well, I mean, we feel like with our returners, we got a lot of our system stuff that were sort of newer introduction last fall. And now we're
Building off of that, we have a lot of new guys, so in some contexts we're almost in the same place. But yeah, I think a lot of it is now we have established a little bit of the culture and the expectations of what we are hoping out of the guys, and likewise with our staff, and I feel like we knowing where things are and just understanding and having a little bit more comfort in that piece is going to be helpful. But we have a lot of pieces that return, so our goal is to try to get back to where we ended, and that is relying on the guys that now have that experience of winning the conference and being at the Final Four, and what it takes to get to that point. There's a lot of really good leadership in the gym that could echo what types of actions and behavior have to match those types of expectations, and I feel like we're doing a pretty good job of that right now.
Yeah. Now, with fall competition coming up and the 2023 season just a couple months away, which is weird to hear myself say, but what new and old faces will be on your roster this year that the fans can expect to see?
Well, we got 9 new faces, and and I think a lot of those guys of new faces are guys that are in the gym pushing
returners to compete at a high level. But between Vanis and Felix in the middle coming back, Caleb being back on the left side, and I'm just referring to guys that were on the court a lot last year.
Right.
Fireball also on the right, I think filled in really well as a role player when Aguilos was down last year. So Caleb is spent a really impressive summer with the national team, and I think he has been able to sustain a lot of the training he was doing throughout the summer, and has translated that into the fall, which I think just huge impact for our guys. And Felix and Vanis, kind of our stabilizers in the middle, I think are setting a really good tone there. We're going to see some new hands for sure with Quinn graduating. Dave Flores, who was our second setter last year, is now competing with 2 new guys, and same thing, just the tone of competition in the gym every day has been really elite, and I think our guys are responding and have a lot of bad days too. I mean, we're learning a lot right now, and when we're doing well, it looks good, and when we're struggling, I think it's things you expect to see in the fall. So if we continue to incline in the direction we're headed, I feel like we'll be prepared to kind of be competitive in the conference again.
Yeah. You mentioned Caleb training over the summer, and I know he was on some USA rosters, but I also know that he was on a beach roster as well.
He
And,
loves volleyball.
what's that?
He loves volleyball. He's nonstop volleyball.
Well, he's pretty darn good for someone who is one of the top in the indoor game right now.
Yeah, I think when I first met Caleb, one of his aspirations was that after college, this possibility to transition
to outdoor, because he just loves the beach game. And yeah, just an impressive player. And I think what's more impressive is you would think someone that plays that much volleyball would at one point rest and relax and maybe R&R, but I mean, if he's not playing here, we got to kind of slow him down because he's trying to play at the beach courts or on grass, when it was nice out. So yeah, he's 24/7 volleyball guy.
Yeah, that definitely confirms everything I was thinking, because you're doing the USAV Beach NTDP in the beginning of the summer, then you showed up on a bunch of USAV NTD, the U19s or U21 teams. Like, does this guy take a break?
I try to teach him some moderation stuff in that context, but when you're young and your arm is like a rubber band, you just kind of can keep going, I guess.
I love that. So with that, fall competition is starting up, but where will Ball State be competing here in the fall?
On the 29th, we're going to be in Columbus at Ohio State. And I think it'll be us and Charleston there. The following weekend, we're at Purdue Fort Wayne in a little MIVA preview tournament that Mr. Rock is hosting. And then we have the MIVA Hall of Fame class of 2022 hosted here at Ball State on November 12th, and that will preview Lindenwood, ourselves, Ohio State, and Purdue Fort Wayne. So those are 3 dates that we're using right now against outside competition. And I think it'll be a good measuring stick. I enjoy fall volleyball and think it's a good opportunity to compete against people outside of the gym, obviously, but to actually use the repetition to kind of see some things we need to continue to work on in the gym.
Yeah. How do you feel the competition will be in the spring once things get dialed in the MIVA? Because we know that it's getting ultra competitive across the nation, and MIVA, I think, has the highest, or the fastest growth of competition within the conference. So there's a lot of talent spread in the conference.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where everybody is going to be, but what I have a lot of confidence in is the coach's ability at each of the programs in the MIVA. Those are coaches that I look up to, and also
are guys that I know work hard, between all of our schools. And I just don't feel like the MIVA, from the top team to the bottom team, you could ever walk into a match and feel like you could be 70% prepared and expect to win. But I know that there's going to be some teams that return a lot of guys, and some teams that have some pretty big gaps to fill, ourselves included. But you mentioned earlier about the record with ourselves and Lewis and like Ohio State is, teams like Loyola and Ohio State and Lewis, they coach to win, and they're successful. And they're national championship cultured teams. And when I remind myself about that, and we remind our team about that in practice, is everyone is trying to win in our conference and believes that they could not only win conference championships, but national championships. And when that's the level and the expectations set in our conference, then it's pretty clear how disciplined you got to be if you want to compete at that level. So my guess is that the usual suspects are going to be really good again. And the teams that, struggle to put results in the wins column are going to do a really good job of getting their athletes back to the level that they need to do to win more matches. So competitive.
Yeah.
And then Queens. So in 24, that's a new addition that we're going to now have to have in our schedule. So.
Oh, that's 24. I thought it was actually coming up this season with
Yeah, I think a
Queens.
lot of our teams are scheduling Queens in 23, but they won't be eligible for the postseason until the following season.
Gotcha. Now, if my memory serves me well, 4 of the last 10 national titles have gone to MIVA teams. So, but check me on that. See, it's the Loyola back-to-backs, Ohio State back-to-backs. So, a pretty solid resume for the MIVA.
Yeah, I just that's kind of the thing I always refer back to is, and then you
even looking at Lewis, they're always in the mix, and Coach Friend has always put in his program in position to win, and those are the kind of coaches that we're competing against, and the impact that they have on their student athletes is pretty amazing. And yeah, like you said, if our record keeps heading in that direction, I would expect that a MIVA team is going to come out on top at the end of the year, here real soon.
Yep. Now, I know it's super early, but I wanted to get a sense of who you thought some of the top players would be this upcoming season throughout the NCAA.
Oh man, I do think it's super early, but I would say any of the top performers returning from last year. And then, the one thing I did learn last season is that, we had someone like Quinn,
Not that he out of nowhere arrived. He's always been a high performing setter, but a lot of those results, sort of changed the landscape of how an individual is perceived in the country, and some accolades they start to get down the stretch. But I'm hoping Caleb is going to be someone that we continue to see kind of escalate to the next level. And then Felix Egareva in the middle for us, and even Vanis Buckholz, our other middle. I think those are guys that are going to really we're hoping to have some standout years. But I don't know, man. I try to pay attention and stay in our lane, and as they come across, and not try to get too far ahead of myself in that context.
Yeah, I'll be a Vanis Buckholz fan. He's got to represent our area here in Newport Beach. So,
he's doing well and he's healthy, and yeah, he's a new guy this year. Just
yep.
After you finish your freshman year, I think there's some things that just click, and things are clicking for him.
Yep. I got a couple questions from Volley Talk and from Instagram, and give to you and just have you respond. Like I said, I just like to get some crowd engagement here, but they wanted me to ask particularly what can be done to get men's volleyball on TV more often, was one of them.
Wow. I think, at least at Ball State, I feel like we do a really good job of our media team having the support to put the type of quality of coverage out there. But, you see that right now. It seems to be a very hot topic on the women's side. And a lot of that, I feel like, is just the awareness of how many people are actually big volleyball fans. I don't know enough to, I think, have a good opinion or voice on what it takes on the business side to actually get those air times, and what it takes to convince the people that make those decisions to understand that you got to be able to put the product in front of people in order for them to at least have the opinion if they like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if there's something we're kind of learning on the women's side, is just getting that messaging out and kind of pushing to get more coverage. It seems to be the social media is a great avenue to push that agenda. And, if we could get those same types of figures also recommending for men's volleyball, I think would be very helpful. And, some of that is their fan bases, and there's just so many more schools participating. But when it comes down to the decisions, I don't know how those are made, but I do feel like men's volleyball is extremely exciting to watch, and trying to put how do we showcase our product the best, and how do we showcase our student athletes, and a lot of that is being able to have the team to put the production on. I think just makes it so much more appealing, and I think places, at least that we play, do a great job of what kind of coverage and live streams they're putting out there.
Yeah. Gosh, actually, even as we were talking, like, one of the previous coaches we've had on made the suggestion of playing at the women's championship match, like a pre-match with the, I know it'd be a different team on the men's side because of graduation, but like, let's say having a team from the semis to the finals play right before the women's national championship match as an exhibition.
Yeah, in terms of promotion, I think that sounds like a great idea. Yeah, I think there are some things
that we could take advantage of opportunities like that, and that would also require us to be open to that idea on the women's side too, logistically, and being able to showcase that, I think, would be a really cool idea.
Yep. Here's my favorite question. I'm certain that it comes from a UH volleyball fan, but they ask what your favorite place to play away games is at other than UH.
Well, UH for sure. And then, I mean, it's hard. This is like a rookie, like you're kind of asking a rookie. It's hard to shy away from the
type of following and atmosphere that is played at BYU. For us, I feel like anytime we're at Lewis, Loyola, or Ohio State, somehow people's voices get louder, and there's more people in seats there. I personally really like playing at Ohio State. I like their setup. Covelli's a super nice arena, and I do feel like the more we compete, my hope is that we'll continue to be the team that when we show up, people want to show up and cheer against us in some way. Cheer a little bit more into the match, and that's what makes it fun, is creating those environments. So conference, probably those three schools, and then BYU was both nights we played there was pretty loud, but boy, special, man. It's a cool place to play. And that's tough to beat.
Yeah. I think a lot of coaches and players feel the same. It's just a great, respectful atmosphere, and the people know the game, so it's hard not to like be in there. So
was I supposed to say Ball State? I don't even know.
Well, it's an away game. It's away game,
okay.
So you're good.
Okay, we're solid. We love our arena.
I've been watching the streams. It looks like it's a pretty happening place during your matches, so I don't blame you for wanting to say it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
This question I didn't prep you for, but I think it'd be good, being that I've been talking to the rookie coaches, or even the new hires, because literally within the last week we found out of another coach. But so Hawks is at, sorry, I should go. John Hawks is at Loyola. You've got Jon Winder at Pepperdine, and now Brad Rostratter at UC San Diego. As you go into your year two, what advice would you have for them going into their year one?
Oh man, those guys are extreme professionals. So I don't know if there's anything I could give them that is going to help them out, because those guys are headed in the right direction already. So, but for me, it was just about enjoying
the opportunity to coach at elite programs and all the programs you were just referring to between PEP, UCSD, and Loyola. Those are institutions that I think uphold athletics to a very high standard, and being a good representative of that is just a great opportunity, and I know those guys are going to do well.
Well, it could have been a personal recommendation, like hygiene, like products for hair, but then Hawks doesn't have hair, so.
Oh, shoot. Well, I didn't laugh. You said it. I was just kind of.
Watch Ted Lasso, right? That's your piece of advice.
There we go.
Yeah, super excited for all three of them. And the cool thing is, I will say on topic and maybe off topic is what has made my experience at Ball State so unique is, the community amongst men's volleyball coaches. It really is a very fostering and like uplifting group of coaches at any level, and I think as we continue to not just grow the game in the way of how do we get coverage, but how do we support coaches on the men's side and being so open-minded to the cross sharing of information and the not so cutthroat recruiting approaches and really looking at the game and what that means as a life experience for these student athletes. I think that's probably been the best thing for me in the last year, has been seeing that from a different angle. And I think a lot of the coaches that are involved in the men's game are, just a lot of really good people and people that are, I think, have their best interests, the student athletes' best interests at mind. And in effect, we just have such a good community of coaches, and that's been awesome to see.
Well, all great stuff you shared today, and on screen with me here on College Volleyball Weekly, AVCA 2022 Coach of the Year, Ball State, Donan Cruz. Thanks for your time today. I appreciate your candidness and your transparency and just an insight into your year one and your program.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me, and always looking forward to tuning into all the content you put out there. We appreciate it.